Hey Dan, can we get a hamster? I always wanted one, but my roommate never thought we would look after it. Phil, we've talked about this. You wouldn't look after it properly. You can hardly look after yourself, he retorted. It wasn't really in an angry way, but he never even took into account that I was older than him, and I lived by myself before him, so getting a hamster wouldn't be that bad. I decided not to argue. Dan was stubborn and wouldn't change his mind. I was going into town later on anyway, so I needed to get changed. I put on my usual skinny jeans and a top on.
I finished getting the few pieces of food that Dan and I needed and was heading back to get the bus. When I walked past the pet shop, I couldn't resist but walking in and I saw a cage with a small, fluffy black and white hamster in the corner. I looked up at the price, €10. It was too small and cute to say no to, so I bought it in a cage. I walked out just as my bus arrived. I paid my fare and hopped on. I couldn't stop smiling. My hamster was one of the best things I've ever done. Or that's what I thought.
I got home and shouted out to Dan, Dan, come see what I bought. He bounced into the hallway of the front door. What's up? I raised the cage with the furry ball curled up in the corner again. The expression on his face changed from sweet to an innocent to a sick and twisted one, with an evil glint in his eye. I love it. I was completely wrong about saying no to get one. He sounded genuine, but there was something about the way he said it that made me feel uneasy. So, what's it called? Dan asked. Can we call him Striker, please? I've always loved that name. I don't really know why. Sure. His reply was cold and harsh. What was wrong about him? I shrugged it off and we went to my room. It was only 9, but I was tired and felt a little bit ill. I pulled my PJ bottoms on and slipped into bed.
I woke up during the night.
You're a fucking idiot!
Keep going, keep going.
Go.
Go!
Woke up during the night. My body freezing cold, and I was unable to move. I opened my eyes and they were wide with shock. I looked down and I was naked with ropes tying me to a chair. And in the corner was a sinister looking Dan that was also naked. Morning, Sleepy Beauty. I was wondering how cold the room had to be for you to wake up. His voice sounded so fluffy and innocent, but the words coming out weren't. He was only wearing his. He was. He was only wearing. He was only wearing his fluffy brown hat. He pulled it off to reveal it. A small black creature sitting in it. Striker, what the fuck was he doing? I don't normally swear, but the situation was so confusing and I was terrified. What was Dan going to do to me? Dan? What are you what are you doing? Why am I tied up? Why? I, s- I stopped when he moved towards me. His expression changed from being happy like when I woke up to murderers. Don't be scared, Phil. We're going to have some fun with Stryker. He crackled menacingly and showed his office erect member, making mine.
Do you want to like stop halfway so that someone else can read it?
Yeah.
Wait, when does it stop?
It doesn't
You have
at
a
this
really
point.
long part.
Uh,
Oh,
all
yeah,
right,
you just
all right, Jaden.
Alright.
Yeah,
He
started.
cackled menacingly and showed off his erect member, making mine start to rise. He put the hat down, Stryker still staying in there, faced it with his length, perfect height to aim into it. Dan, what are you doing? Please stop. He stormed over to me and gave me a rough kiss. Everything will be okay, I promise. Dan grabbed a gag from behind me and put it over my mouth. He walked back over to the hat and began to stroke, looking over to me as he did so. After a short time, his seed exploded into the hat, but he didn't stop there. He kept on going until the hat was filled to the top. The white liquid was nearly spilling over the top, and my poor hamster was barely able to breathe. It was doing the doggy paddle just to survive, and all I could do was sit and watch. Dan grabbed the hamster's head and pushed it down to his own sperm. After 5 minutes of his sick games, he pulled it back up, dead.
Alright, cool.
He snapped the hamster's head off, the neck bones shattering and making me mumble. That was supposed to be a scream. Tears flowed down my face and he squeezed the blood of Striker into the hat. He looked over at me. He was sick and twisted, but also kind of sexy. He picked up the hat and moved towards me with one hand and undid the gag. Open wide, he said in a sarcastic tone. I did as I was told. I didn't know what else was hiding behind me. He began to pour the sperm, blood mixture into my mouth, only for me to realize he had put my poor Striker back in there, head and body. The fluid tasted disgusting, partly because it had gone cold, but also because I knew that it was my hamster's blood I was drinking. He pulled back halfway through, not that I'm complaining, and said, "Good little Phil. Do I taste nice?" My eyes widened. What do I say? I was about to open my mouth when he slapped me. Speak, bitch! Wanted to and wanted to raise my hand to my face. My cold face stung when his hot, sticky hand touched it. You taste amazing, Dan. I managed to choke out.
Alright, I'll go. Yeah, I do. Time for more fun. I didn't like where this was going. He pulled the black body that was coated in white from the hat. Dan rammed it down my throat, causing my gag reflex to kick in, and I vomited all over myself. Dan smirked at this, got him down to his knees. He began to lick all over me. His soft tongue was gliding all over me until he found its way to my throbbing erection. He started at the tip and worked his way down, deep throating me. It felt so nice. Most people couldn't do this, but it didn't last long. He looked up to me, his innocent brown eyes making me melt. Promise you won't run? He sounded so sorry, so I nodded. He got up and untied me and grabbed me by the shoulders. I'm going to lie on the floor and we're going to pour the rest of the hat down and you're going to lick it off, okay? He growled. Sweet, loving Dan was gone then. I quickly nodded as he got to the floor. I grabbed the hat and poured it on him. Just as he commanded, I began to lick it off him. The mixture wasn't as bad as last time. I think it's because I'm not having it forced down my throat. Suck me off, Phil. It sounded so weird, but yet again, I did as I was told. I wasn't as good as him. I could only fit half of him down my mouth before I felt sick. I wasn't going to seem like forever. Before he pushed my head down, you've done well, but there's one last thing I need you to do. He pulled out the hamster's head from the pile left over in the sick. When I say stop, I will, but only if you think you've done good enough. I started to shake and tremble. Dan put his arm around me. It's okay. It won't be that bad. He hushed me. He said he'd much nicer. Are you ready? He asked me, and a sense of impatience grew in his tone.
Oh, yes. I spit it out, and he quickly rolled me onto my front. The fuck is that word? His hand placed on the top of my back, pinning me down. The hamster's head in his other hand and nearing my rectum. I know where this is going.
He
Jada.
rammed it in with no hesitation, and a burning sensation spread throughout me. For the rest of it, he used his manhood to push it in. I wanted to say stop, but he wouldn't. I know it. Finally, it got too much, and I screamed out, "Stop!" I looked back at Dan, who just grinned. "Come on, Phil. I know you can do better than that." He forcefully went in further. Not quite all the way, though.
Dan, please, I'm begging you to stop. It's so sore, I pleaded, the burning sensation turning into a stabbing feeling. Dan stroked my hair and gently pulled out. The hamster's head was still inside me. It felt horrible knowing that I had a dead animal's head sitting inside my intestines. Dan put his hand inside me and went deep. I cried out in pain. I felt like exploding. He finally showed me his hand with the head in it. I wished the torture was over, but I knew Dan would have other plans. But this time he didn't, and he just wrapped his arms around my hips. Trigger.
I leaned in for a kiss, and so did he. We walked down into my room, and when we pushed me onto the bed. thought he was gonna want sex, but he was so caring and just spooned me until we fell asleep. I woke up to find Dan with the hamster's body and head in its mouth, chewing violently, bones snapping and crunching underneath his teeth. He had blood dripping from his chin. He crawled over to me and I licked it off for him. He grinned as I thought. I read his thoughts and he started to finish eating. And every month, we buy a hamster.
To be continued.
Oh my god.
Crucio Styles comments, I wanna fucking myself. Gray Side 1621 comments, Dear God, I'm cringing so much.
Musical Trash 1312 comments. I've heard about this and it wasn't my first time reading this. It is that bad and I wasn't phased.
Clit Woo comments, Thank you. Very cool.
Also, my mom walked in on me. I'm cringing at this. Well, okay.
Yo, Mom, I just wrote this fan fiction. Can you proofread?
Ah, fuck. I hit my knee on this.
Stop